someone's waiting for it on YouTube. I never know if anyone is, but figure better safe than sorry. And someone else joined us. Ah, Suzanne, great. Hello.
Hi.
All right. So, all right. Let's leave those off. All right. So we will get started. Oh, hello, Anne. Nice to have you.
Hello.
Did we lose someone in the process?
I came in before Suzanne.
Oh,
Maybe not. Maybe not. I don't know. I didn't notice.
all right.
Tell me what book we're up. Joshua, what?
We are going to be looking at Joshua chapter 7. All
You
right.
got it right here.
Good, you got it. Good deal. Good deal. The amazing capacity of screens to do what you need. All right, so just one more little. I'm working on an email that I'm going to send to everyone on my list about the course we're going to do about the David story, the book. So Dodie, you will know that this is the right book because I confirmed it with you already. But this is the book we're going to be looking at. When you respond to my emails, please let me know if you can get the book yourself or if you need me to get it. Don't tell me now because I'll just forget. But if you're interested in joining us, we will be doing a course on this book. The expectation being that people, will read a certain chunk of the book ahead of time. So we won't be reading it sort of word by word the way we do in this class. We'll sort of have the idea that people will have already read it, so we can start with the discussion, and it'll be more like a college class that way. So if you're interested in joining us, just let me know by email when you get that email. If you're not on the emails, Laura should be putting it in our weekly schedule, and you can just give me a call. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Great.
Who's the author of the book?
Robert Alter, and there are plenty of copies on Amazon, and they range between like $8 and $15 depending on the condition. So it's also if it's going to be a what we call a tircha, a burden on you financially, please let me know so that I can help you out. Okay, we have another phone caller. Who is at 3397?
Stuart Richstein.
Oh, Philip. Okay, great. Stuart, right? Stuart Richstein.
1550 Beacon.
That's right. That sounds good. All right, great.
Okay.
Thank you, Stuart, for joining us. This is great. All right, so we'll get started. We'll get started with our class. So we just read, and just to sort of reiterate what I've said several times in the course of this class, I think we can't really say it enough times, right? That these prophetic books, describe a world which is very much not our world. It's much more like the world of, say, like the Game of Thrones or the Lord of the Rings. Warfare is sort of the norm. Horrific violence happens on a regular basis. It's hard to sort of understand sometimes how we, sort of can glean, how we can glean spiritual meaning from these stories. It's sort of along the lines of, it's like the world of the Odyssey or the Iliad, where horrific violence happens all the time. Yet, these stories, right, are still sort of in our consciousness as the sort of basis of our civilization. And so there's on one hand, I think a legitimate and reasonable horror at what we read. On the other hand, we sort of have to do a little bit of a suspension, right, and try to put ourselves in the mindset of a reader who would be seeing this as a more familiar kind of a world. Right. So we just finished the famous story of the Battle of Jericho, right, which we remember from the spiritual Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, right? Where the spiritual, I don't know how to sing. We talked last time about how the Israelites circle around the city 7 times, and there's a sort of magical, they let out the shout, right, and the magical sort of thing where the walls all fall down, right, and then there's the terrible scene of slaughter, right, where everything is prescribed, and that's the word they use in English for the Hebrew cherem, right, meaning that everything needs to be destroyed. Nothing can be saved for the use of the Israelites, right? And what does it say at the very end? And I'm gonna first of all I'm gonna mute everybody so that we can make sure that that we don't have a lot of side noise. Please do feel free at any time to raise your hand by pushing the raising your hand button on the under the participants menu, or you can also, if you're on the phone, push *9, and that will get you where you're going. So let me just pull up the book, and we'll get started. All right. So Joshua, at the very end of Joshua chapter 6. We have a little bit of a precursor, a little bit of a teaser about what is likely to happen, right? So God says, and Joshua charged the people with an oath at that time, saying, "Cursed be the man before the Lord that rises up." Oh no, that's not the one. I'm sorry. It's a different one. Boy. In any case, right. It's verse 18. I apologize. I got the wrong verse. And ye in any wise keep yourselves from the devoted thing. The devoted thing is the other word for prescribed. That's used in this. That's in this translation. Same word in Hebrew, cherem. And if I'll point out the word in Hebrew for you. This is cherem right here, minha cherem, right? Different than a harem, right? Cherem with a chet. Keep yourself from that devoted thing. Yes, ye make yourselves accursed by taking of the cherem, so should ye make the camp of Israel accursed and trouble it, right? Okay, so don't take anything for yourself, right? Everything either needs to be destroyed, but the silver, the gold, the vessels of brass and iron, those need to come into the treasury of the Lord. Okay. All right. So now we will, okay, Ian, go ahead. You have to unmute yourself. I just
mentioned the last verse, and I went and looked at the next to last verse, because the last verse didn't have anything.
Yeah.
And Joshua charged them at that time, saying, "Cursed be the man before the Lord that rises up and builds this city Jericho. He shall lay its foundation with his firstborn, and with his youngest son shall set up the gates." And
Right.
this one doesn't say that in the, I can't move it down to 26.
Yeah.
When I read 26, it's exactly the opposite.
What are you talking about? I'm sorry, I missed.
Well, look at verse 26 down
Yeah.
here.
So verse 26 is another interesting verse, which says, right, that if anyone tries to rebuild Jericho, right, if anyone tries to fortify this city again, right, he shall lay the foundations at the cost of his firstborn, right, and set up its gates at the cost of its youngest, right. This is a a curse that will be laid onto whoever tries to rebuild Jericho. So in my book, in my Bible, it points me to chapter 16 of 1 Kings. So let me read a little bit of that, and we can understand maybe what's going to happen. Okay. So Ahab, son of Omri, became king of Israel in the 38th year of King Asa of Judah. This is much later when the two kingdoms of Israel have split, right? The unified kingdom of David and Solomon has split into the kingdom of Judah, which includes Jerusalem, and then the kingdom of Israel, right, which later becomes the 10 lost tribes, right? Ahab, the son of Omri, became king over Israel in the 38th year of King Asa of Judah, and Ahab, son of Omri, reigned in Israel and Samaria for 22 years. Ahab, son of Omri, did what was displeasing to the Lord more than all who preceded him. Ahab is famous for being the worst king ever. And what's really interesting is, of course, that is Ahab is the name that Melville gave to his Manamanayo,
Worst ship captain.
worst ship captain ever, right? Exactly. Not content, it says, to follow the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, he took as wife Jezebel, right? The famous Jezebel, daughter of King Ethbaal of the Phoenicians, and he went and served Baal and worshipped him. He erected an altar to Baal, which he built in Samaria. Ahab also made a sacred post. Well, these are very bad things to do in the Israelite religion. Ahab did more to vex the Lord, the God of Israel, than all the kings of Israel who preceded him, right? And the God of Israel has been plenty vexed by all the kings that preceded Ahab. Right? During his reign, Hiel the Bethelite fortified Jericho. He laid its foundations at the cost of Abiram, his firstborn, and set its gates in place of the cost of Segub, his youngest, in accordance with the words that the Lord had spoken through Joshua, son of Nun. Right? So later on, we find that someone actually did do that, and so this was a curse that was, according to the book of Joshua, was laid on him way back when. Okay, all right. So now let's continue with chapter 7. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to turn that off so I can do this. All right, now we'll get to chapter 7. Okay. Uh-oh, what happened? Is everyone there?
Hello? Yes.
Oh my gosh, I don't know what happened there. That was
We're all muted. We were all muted.
yeah.
Well, I just unmuted myself so I could say, yes, we're here.
Oh, good, because my screen went completely black and I wasn't hearing anything. So okay, all right, good. So here we are in chapter 7. Also, very interesting chapter for all kinds of reasons. So what is going on with my computer today? All right, let's see here. But the children of Israel committed a trespass concerning the cherem, right? Concerning the devoted thing. So again, we have that word. I'll annotate it again for you so you can see where it is. Right here. Right here. Right. Okay. Ba'cherem. Right. Okay. So. But the children of Israel committed a trespass concerning the proscribed thing, the devoted thing. For Achan, the son of Carmi, the son of Zabdi, the son of Zerach of the tribe of Judah, took of the devoted thing, and the anger of Adonai was kindled against the children of Israel. Okay. All right. So just in very interesting. I always find it interesting to see when God gets angry. Right? What does that look like? Right? What is going on here? This is just. I'm sorry. This doesn't appear to be working the way it's supposed to. I'm going to give up. All right. I tried. Okay. Vayichar af, right? His nose got really hot, right? That's how God gets angry, right? So so this kindling of God's nose against the children of Israel, right? And just note, right? You can sort of see when on the screen. This doesn't always happen in printed Bibles. It's sometimes happened, but not always. But it's very convenient in this website, right? It has S here, right, which indicates some sort of a break in the biblical text on the scroll, right? And so you can sort of see that this in its own way is like its own little section, right? And then it stops. Okay, go ahead, Suzanne. Oh, you're muted still.
Oh, wait. There we go. Okay. So this guy, Achan,
Yeah.
okay, took the devoted thing, right?
Yep.
Okay. And because one person did that, the anger of Adonai was kindled against all the children of Israel.
Yes. Very interesting, right? This is like, God here is like, the grade school teacher who says, because this one person did this, we will no longer do this, whatever the fun thing that we were going to do, we no longer can do because this miscreant, here ruined everything for everybody, right?
So
So
it's peer pressure then.
I mean, it's really interesting. It's peer pressure, and it's also this sort of notion of collective punishment, right? That if
Mhm.
one person in the collective does something wrong, then everybody is held accountable, right? Or to put it even more bluntly, right? Everybody is guilty, right? Right. There's a famous quotation by Abraham Joshua Heschel that I trot out a fair amount, especially in contexts, where we're talking about injustices that happen in the world, right? And people often feel very bad, right, that they've been someone who's benefited from other people's injustice. I mean, I feel that way on a regular basis. But to remember Heschel, right, is to remember that that not everyone is guilty, right, but everyone is responsible, right? So two different things, right? This is very different, right? This is no, everybody is guilty, right? Achan does the one thing, right? One person makes a mistake, and everybody gets punished, right? And that's which is really troubling, right? It's a really troubling sort of a notion, right? It's setting a really high bar for how a society has to behave, um, and it's almost it's almost like a terrorizing kind of a strategy. But let's any other thoughts on this before we continue? Okay, great. So we'll continue with this narrative, right? Okay, so now it seems to like start fresh. And Joshua sent men from Jericho to Ai, which is besides Beth Aven, on the east side of Beth El, and spoke to them, saying, "Go up and spy out the land." And the men went up and spied out Ai. And they returned to Joshua and said unto him, let not all the people go up, but let about 2,000 or 3,000 men go up and smite Ai. Make not all the people to toil thither, for they are but few. Okay. All right. So just another note. I'm going to try again to annotate, but something seems to be wrong with my Zoom. So I'm just going to see what we can do. All right. I don't think it's going to work. This word here, I'll highlight it. Can people see my highlight in blue? Yeah. Okay. So this word, right? Alpayim ish o shloshit alafim ish. Okay. So literally that means 2,000 or 3,000 men. Right. We'll see this again and again in terms of troop movements. How many people are going to go this way or that way to engage the enemy, right? So in some of the numbers, especially later in this chapter, just seem completely ridiculous in terms of the numbers that they're talking. So there is a theory when people talk about this, right, that it's not actually thousands, right? It actually means something like company, right, or squadrons or something like this. So you can sort of imagine, don't send the entire brigade, right? Just send 2 or 3 platoons, right? And that'll be enough. So I'm not saying that is actually what it means, but that's how people have tried to explain it. Okay, so let them go up and smite Ai, make not all the people toil thither, because they are but few. They meaning the people of Ai are few. It's, you don't need to send everybody. So there went up thither of the people about 3,000 men, and they fled before the men of Ai. This is not expected, right? This is not expected. We know, right, what's going on. And this is very interesting, the way the Bible does this, right? Because you can imagine, right, that, a different narrative style would say, okay, I'm just going to tell the story, right? And I'm not going to say what happened, right? I'm not going to say what happened with Achan, right, until afterwards, right? But the biblical narrator wants to use this sort of dramatic irony, right, where the reader knows what reader already knows what happened, right? The reader knows that God is mad, and so the reader is not surprised, but the reader can sort of witness, right, the shock and surprise and terror of the Israelites, who thought, right, they were told, we're getting this land handed to us on a silver platter. Look what happened over at Jericho, right? We just walked around the city and that was all we had to do. So why are we suddenly fleeing from this tiny group of people in Ai, right? And the men of Ai smote of them about 36 men. Right? This is probably also evidence, right, of the idea that evidence to support the argument that the 3,000 isn't 3,000 but 3 companies, right? Because of 3,000 men, that's not very, 36 isn't very many, right? But if it were, say, 300, that's a lot of people. Okay, and they chased them from before the gate, even unto Shebarim, and smote them at the descent, and the hearts of the people melted and became as water. Very interesting how quickly, right, this shifts, right? One setback, right, and all of a sudden the people's hearts have melted and become water. And Joshua rent his clothes. Why would he rend his clothes?
His
Go ahead.
people died.
Say again?
His
People died.
Yeah, right. People died, right? This is mourning, right? But it's probably even more than that, right? And we'll continue the verse and we'll sort of get a little bit into it, right? And Joshua rent his clothes and fell to the earth upon his face before the ark of the Lord until the evening. He and the elders of Israel, and they put dust upon their heads. Right? Very interesting, right? What are they doing here?
They're mourning.
They're mourning, exactly, Sandy. Right? They're mourning. It's almost like it's Yom Kippur, right? It's almost like it's a big Yom Kippur for them because they don't know what happened, right? And so at the end, I'm assuming, right, that this is Ad Erev, right? Is very interesting, right? That it's going to be, they're going to sit there until the end of the evening, Ad HaErev, right? And then Joshua says, alas, right? Oh Adonai, God, right? Wherefore hast thou at all brought this people over the Jordan to deliver us into the hands of the Amorites, to cause us to perish? Would that we had been content and dwelt beyond the Jordan. All right, so I'm just going to stop there for a second. What does this sound like to you?
Well, when they,
Go ahead. That's okay.
when it's another parallel to the Exodus.
That's what it seems like to me, right?
Yeah.
That's what it seems like to me, and at which it always it never ceases to surprise me reading the Exodus narrative, how quickly, right, the people go from this complete and utter faith in God and in Moses, right, and then they suddenly, one annoying or bad or tragic thing happens, and they're just completely shattered, right? They just lose everything all at once, right? And this notion, right, that one of the funniest lines in Bible, there were no graves in Egypt that you could have just had us die there. We had to come out here to do it, right? And here, this is Joshua, right? This is Joshua, the guy who, one of only two people in the generation of the wilderness to make it into the promised land, right? And he sounds just like a member of his generation. Oh, we asked for too much. We shouldn't have come. This land is going to eat us alive. We shouldn't ever do this. So I'm just amazed, right, at this. Right, at the same time, right, at the same time, Joshua is also, right, he's now taking on the Moses role, right? He's the one that's now saying, what am I supposed to do now, God, that it seems like the deal you made with us is maybe not the deal that we thought it was. All right, so he's going to continue. All right, oh Lord, what shall I say after that Israel hath turned their backs before their enemies? For when the Canaanites and all the inhabitants of the land hear of it, they will compass us round and cut off our name from the earth. And what wilt thou do for thy great name? All right, so this sounds even more like Moses, right? This sounds like when Moses was, when God was ready to smite all the Israelites, right? Moses said, what would the Egyptians say, right? And so now Joshua is using a variation on this. What will the Canaanites say, right? And they're going to kill us all, right? And I love what God says here, right? This is along the line. This reminds me almost of what happened when Moses was about to split the sea. He says, "Stop praying and start walking," right? And the Lord said unto Joshua, "Get thee up. Wherefore now?" Right? Lama. Wherefore? Why? Right? What is this about? Lama zeh. What is this about? Ata nofel al panecha. Why are you falling on your face? Right? And he says, Israel hath sinned. Right? Very interesting, right? That in what Joshua said, right? Was there any sense? Did Joshua even seem to have any idea, right? That the reason that this might have happened was because of some sort of sin. Right? It appears that Joshua has essentially decided, right, that God has betrayed them. And so he fell on his face to say, please don't betray us, right? Whereas God is saying, no, look, you guys did something wrong, and now you got to fix it. All right. So if Israel hath sinned, right, and they have transgressed the covenant which I commanded to them. Right? So this has this sort of biblical poetic parallelism, right, where things get repeated. Chata Yisrael v'gam avru et briti. Right. So they have transgressed, right, overstepped my covenant, and v'gam lachu min hacherem. Right. They have taken from the cherem, right? They have taken from what is prescribed, right? And they have stolen it, right? And, right, they have dissembled, and they have put it among their own stuff. I don't know why they use the word stuff here. That's an interesting stuff. I think has a tendency to mean like clothing.
I have a comment. I find it disconcerting. Which translation are you guys using?
The translation on the screen is what's called Old JPS, which is from 1917. And the one that I have, the one that I have in front of me is the new JPS, and that translates it the way I would translate it. The Gam Samu Bichlehem, right? That they put it into their containers.
Mine says use the word stolen and lied and put it among their own stuff, kind of reminiscent of the Joseph's brothers leaving Egypt.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, so there's this, this sort of this sin, right, that has been hidden from Joshua, hidden from everybody, right? And therefore God says, the children of Israel cannot stand before their enemies. They turn their backs before their enemies because they are become accursed. I will not be with you anymore, except ye destroy the accursed from among you. All right. So God actually has abandoned the people, right? And that abandonment will continue as long as the person who is guilty of the crime has not been destroyed, right? Punished is not enough, right? Utter extirpation is what's necessary. Also a very, very disturbing standard of justice here.
What is the crime?
We'll find out. We'll find out, Sandy. All will be revealed. Okay. Up. Sanctify the people and say, sanctify yourselves against tomorrow. Sanctify yourself. Here it says for tomorrow in the other one, right? Prepare yourselves for tomorrow, meaning you've got to fix this before you go out and try to attack I in the morning. Okay. Or I guess you're going to do it tomorrow and then you can go up and get I. For thus saith the Lord, okay, the God of Israel, there is a curse in the midst of thee, O Israel, thou canst not stand before thine enemies until ye take away the accursed thing from among you. All right. So it's really thinking about, the Israelites as a corporate body, right? And if there's something that is amiss in that corporate body until that thing is excised, right, the corporate body cannot continue to function. In the morning, therefore, ye shall draw near by your tribes, and it shall be that the tribe which the Lord hath taken, a tribe which the Lord taketh, shall come near by families, and the family which the Lord shall take shall come near by households, and the household which the Lord shall take shall come near man by man. And it shall be that he that is taken with the devoted thing shall be burnt with fire, he and all that he hath, because he hath transgressed the covenant of the Lord, and because he hath wrought a wanton deed in Israel. All right, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time wondering about, why there needs to be such a horrible punishment. I'm just going to sort of put that into the same category of just like, this is beyond my capacity to understand. But I do want to ask, and feel free to chime in, because I really don't have an idea in my head about why this is. But what is the point of this particular procedure, right? Why would God insist that it sort of happen this way, right? This sort of very slow unveiling of the guilty party, rather than just saying, go, it's this guy. We are for again, like we already know as readers, we know who it was, right? We know it was Achan, right? Because this text told us, but Joshua doesn't know that, and nobody else knows that, right? So, so why does God want it to happen this way? Suzanne, you have your hand up.
Yes, perhaps this seemingly small happening is being made large as a warning to the people that in the future, if they're thinking about doing something larger, they might not do it.
Yeah.
Sort of like when I'm told when teachers start classes in the fall with young children or maybe older children, they're very, very strict, and every little transgression is highlighted and pointed out and punished.
Right.
And that's what this reminds me of.
Right. And that way, the teacher can presumably become a little bit more lenient as the year goes on, because the students have sort of internalized that level of discipline. Yeah. Right. So they're right. So that absolutely, I think, makes a lot of sense. And while you were talking, Suzanne, I had a thought myself, but I want to hear other people's voices. If anyone else would like to chime in. Anybody have an idea of why this very elaborate system? Okay. So the idea that came to mind when Suzanne was talking about her idea, which I do think really makes a lot of sense, right? This is right at the beginning, right? This is right at the very beginning of this process, right? They've just had their first, sort of big, to put it into Suzanne's context, right? They've had their opening day party, right, in their classroom over in Jericho, right? And now, and people were expected to behave a particular way at that party, right? And there was a transgression at that party, so the teacher needs to make a really, really big statement right at the beginning of the year to make sure, right, that this is not going to be behavior that gets repeated. All right. The other thing that I was just thinking of at the same time, and I think that this does not in any way negate what Suzanne said. I think she's right. But what I was thinking is also that this makes it very clear. This process makes it very clear, right, that even though it was one person who made the transgression, right, that we're not going to deal with it, right, by just going to that one person and saying he's the guilty one, right? We're going to deal with it by making everyone look inside their own house, right? Everyone, when it's at the level of the clan, right, everyone's going to have to be looking at the level of the clan. Is it someone in our clan, right? And then when we get, the tribe gets chosen, right? So as it goes down in these, deeper and deeper concentric circles, right, more and more people are released from suspicion, so to speak. But it really forces everyone to spend the night wondering, oh, is it something that happened in our house, or God forbid, right, is it something that I myself did, not realizing that it was a transgression, right? So it sort of forces everyone to search their souls.
Do we know what the sin was?
As I said, Sandy, this is one of the amazing, I love that you keep asking, right? Because it goes to show how effective this narrative is, right? I have a friend, right, he's a big atheist. And he's like, the Bible is, is it really worth reading? As a book. And I like to say, well, it's an ancient text, right? In the way that, there are other ancient texts, and there's parts of it, right, that are, it's genealogies and it's lists of place names. And so maybe that's not so interesting all the time, but there are certainly in the Bible, some of the most exquisite literary work. And this is one of those chapters, right, that it keeps you wanting to know, right? What did the guy do, right? We know that he did something, right? We know what effect it's had on Joshua and on the Israelites. We know that it's a really big deal because God wants to make a big deal of it, but we don't even know what it is, right? But we have to wait until the end of the chapter to find out. Okay, so Joshua rose up early in the morning and brought Israel nearby their tribes, and the tribe of Judah was taken. Okay, so we know it was the tribe of Judah. Everyone else can breathe a sigh of relief, go back to their tents, right? And he brought near the family of Judah, and he took the family of the Zerachites. Right? And he brought near the family of the Zerachites man by man, and Zabdi was taken. And he brought near his household man by man, and Achan. Big surprise to us, right? We knew who it was, right? The son of Carmi, the son of Zabdi, the son of Zerach, of the tribe of Judah, was taken, right? So in a way, right, all of these constituents are guilty, right? All of these levels, these concentric circles, right, Achan, his father Carmi, his father Zabdi, his father Zerach, their father Judah, right? And over all of that, right, all of Israel, right, is guilty because of Achan's deed. And Joshua said to Achan, very interesting. I've always been struck by the way he addresses this. He says, Beni, simnak chavod ladonai Elohei Yisrael, v'ten lo todah. Right? So my son, give, I pray, the glory or honor to Adonai, the God of Israel, and ten lo todah, right? And give him an acknowledgement of what you have done. What else does todah mean in Hebrew?
Thank you.
Thank you, right? It also means the thanksgiving offering, right? So it's very interesting, right? A very interesting sort of just linguistic point of fact in Hebrew, right? That when you say todah, you're acknowledging and thanking, right? So in a sense, there's a little bit of an irony here, right? You have to thank God, right? He's saying, "V'haged na li me asita al techached himeni." Okay, very interesting, because we have to remember again, right? Joshua doesn't know what he's done. So he says to him, tell me now, what did you do? And don't hide anything. Right? And so, and interesting to me that Vaya'an Achan et Yehoshua Vayomar Omna, right? Omna, faithfully, right? Omna is the same root as the word, we know it very well. We say it at the end of every blessing, right? Amen, right? So truly, right? Of truth, I have sinned against Adonai, the God of Israel, and thus have I done. V'chazot asiti, right? And now he's going to tell. So Sandy, finally, the big reveal, right? Finally, the big reveal. When I saw among the spoil a goodly Shinar mantle and 200 shekels of silver and a wedge of gold of 50 shekels weight, then I coveted them and took them, and beheld, they are hid in the earth in the midst of my tent, and the silver under it. So Joshua sent messengers, malachim, right? Messengers here is malachim here is messengers, not angels, but and they ran into the tent, under the tent, and behold, it was hid in his tent, and the silver under it. And they took them from the midst of the tent and brought them unto Joshua, unto all the children of Israel, and they laid them down before the Lord. And now, unfortunately, is the punishment part. Right? And Joshua and all Israel with him took Achan, the son of Zerach, and the silver and the mantle and the wedge of gold, and his sons and his daughters, and his oxen and his asses, and his sheep and his tent, and all that he had. And they brought them up to the valley of Achor. And Joshua said, why hast thou troubled us? Right? Me achartanu. Why did you make trouble for us? And this note here, right, that it's Emech Achor. Emech Achor, it's like the valley of trouble. Okay, it's the same root as here. Ma'achartanu, right? Why did you trouble us? Why did you make? How do they translate it here? Alternative translation, calamity, right? What a calamity you've brought on us, right? So, so it could also be the valley of calamity, right? Why hast you brought this calamity upon us, right? Thus there will be a calamity, right? God will be calamitous on you on this day. Right? And all Israel stoned him with stones, and they burned them with fire and stoned them with stones. And they raised over him a great heap of stones unto this day. And the Lord turned from the fierceness of his anger, wherefore the name of that place was called the Valley of Achor unto this day. So this becomes an etiology, meaning an explanation for why something is the way it is. right? Why do we have this situation? Why do we have this big heap of stones in this place that we call the Valley of Calamity? We have a story, right? This is the story. This is what happened, and this is where we get this, right? Right. And very interesting here also, right? Vayashov Adonai me Haron apo, right? So, and God turned away from the anger of his nose, right? From the heat, the fire of his nose. He decides that he changes his mind, right? Because of this, he was propitiated. Go ahead, Ann. Oh, you're still muted.
Sins of the father, throughout all this, I've been thinking about the sins of the father will be visited. Punishment goes down to the third and fourth generations. And we've got Achan, Carmi, Zabdi, and Zerah. That's 4 generations.
Yeah, it's interesting because it would be interesting to sort of wonder, like, was there another sin in among those generations? But I think that what you're saying is accurate, because that the sins, I mean, I always found this to be very, I mean, not just so troubling, right? Because in our tradition, right, it says that if anyone who kills a person, right, is killing a whole world, right? Because because of the descendants that are no longer able to emerge, right? And here, right, it's not just Achan himself; it's his entire family, right, which is held to account here. And
It seems to be going backward.
well, right. I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's how it would work. It's an interesting question. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, right. I mean, is there some sort of I mean, I think that the point is actually, Ann, that if the crime is not punished, if Achan is not destroyed, right, then that whole range of people would be held guilty. So in that sense, yes, it would be going back in the generations. As it is, right, the Achan is punished as is his entire family. Okay. All right. So in the time that we have left, what do we take from this story?
Punishment was brutal back then.
Punishment is brutal, right? And again, this is not unique to the Israelites, of course. This is just kind of the way. In the ancient world, punishment was no joke, right? I think of the story of the spies in the Odyssey, right? The unbelievably bloody punishment for their crimes. Go ahead, Suzanne. You're muted though.
Okay, all right. I think it tells us that we're community and we're all responsible for each other.
Right.
And that we need, where is it that says if you see somebody doing something wrong, you're supposed to point it out to them? There's some place that says that.
Right. In Leviticus, right, that don't stand by the sin of your neighbor, right? Rebuke him, don't hate him in your heart, but also rebuke him so that he can change his ways. Right.
Right. Is that in Pirkei Avot?
No, I believe that's in Leviticus, but it might be
Leviticus.
also.
Okay. So I think it's an example of that, and that it really is, the community is more important than the individual.
Right. Yeah.
Hello?
The communitarian ethos here is pretty strong.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. What I find interesting is that it seems that fire is not only destroys everything, it's also in a way a purifying element.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because, in Deuteronomy, right, the rabbis determine that there are several different forms of capital punishment that are meted out according to various crimes. And of course, the point of the rabbis delineating all of these various forms of capital punishment is to eventually come to the determination that none of them is valid anymore, right?
Oh,
All that capital punishment stuff, that was back in the time of the Torah and the time of the prophets. Now that we live in the world in which we live, right, we human courts are not granted the authority to order capital punishment, right? But what's interesting here is that Achan is stoned and burned, right? So it even by the standards of the time, right? This is an incredibly harsh punishment, right? Because he's basically killed twice, right? He received
yeah.
2 death penalties. It's sort of like those sentences for, when people do horrible crimes and they're sentenced to 500 years in prison or something like this. To sort of demonstrate the horrific nature of their crimes. Yeah.
Yeah, but for me, it's yes, there's a crime, there's punishment, but the punishment also is to purify so that the people will not do that again.
Absolutely right. I mean, I really like that idea, right? That there's almost a, sort of a burnt offering kind of,
Yeah, right.
kind of aspect to it, which is really interesting, right? Because getting back to that word todah, right? Give a todah to the Lord, right? Is give that is a category of burnt offering, right? You're supposed to bring a todah offering to the Lord when you have something to be thankful for, right? So obviously Achan has nothing to be thankful for.
Yes, right.
A bit ironic, right? But it is like you're our todah, right? We're going to bring you for as sort of a thanks offering that God doesn't smite everybody every place. Yeah. All right. Good, Sandy. I see you unmuted yourself. Do you want to say something?
No, if you talk about the punishments and the brutality, you think it's not going on here now in Afghanistan and Iraq, we're just as brutal.
Right. I mean, the injustice of the I mean, I do think that that's one thing about the Bible and about other ancient texts, right? Is that they, whether they are accurate, right, in their depiction of the horror in of these societies, they do get right at something of an unpleasant, uncomfortable human truth, right? Is that the only truly cruel species in the world is humans, right? And that what we inflict upon one another is really, I mean, I wish I could say it's unthinkable because it's horrible, right? We don't want to face it. And one of the things that our ancient texts tend to be a little bit less squeamish about these things than a lot of us are these days, including me. I don't give myself any particular credit for being able to unflinchingly look at this sort of thing. But you're right, Sandy, absolutely. Anne, you want to say something?
Oh, I'm just fooling around here.
Okay. All right, great. All right, so next week we will continue with chapter 8. Stuart, do you have I'm going to unmute you, Stuart. Do you have, would you like me to get you a text, or do you have a Bible in your apartment?
If I have a Bible, I don't know where it is. So yes, please get me a text.
Well, Phyllis, I knew that you wanted one. I know Judy wants one, but I'm asking Stuart. Stuart, do you have a Bible, or would you like me to get you one?
I don't have a Bible.
All right, so I will try to arrange for Xerox of the book of Joshua to be delivered to you, to Phyllis and Judy, and please let your neighbors and colleagues know that they're welcome to join us, and that I'm more than happy to supply texts for people who don't have a screen to read.
Okay,
Okay.
All
Good
right.
night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.